Hear ye, here comes the judge. It's the Yogi Judge, Judge Dawson, back with another podcast aimed at giving you information and tools that you can use so that you can avoid this thing we call the legal matrix. Getting caught in the legal matrix, dealing with police officers in the legal matrix, even coming before a judge like me in the legal matrix. I want you to avoid all of that. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, believe it or not, there are tools and techniques that can keep you from appearing before any judge, not only myself, but if you've been listening to my podcast, if you follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and all those other social media handles at Judge Dawson, then you probably already know that if you come before me, I have to be the most compassionate judge in the world. Okay, maybe that's a little exaggeration. I mean, I'm sure there are some wonderful, amazing judges out there. But one thing that sets me apart is my dedication to bringing you information and knowledge. Because think about it, the only way that we can go to the next level, the only way that we can live and exist in our greatness is if we have the knowledge to do so. Part of that knowledge for me is to make sure that you avoid negative interaction with the legal system, because it is so easy to get caught up in this system. You could be driving down the street, minding your own business, and all of a sudden, police officers are pulling you over. Why? Nothing you did necessarily, or maybe you did. Maybe you were speeding, maybe you weren't. But anyway, now you are in this system somehow. Small interaction. And then right at that moment, you determine whether or not that small interaction becomes a big interaction. You decide if that small situation becomes a big mess. Many times you have the power to make sure that that traffic stop ends with you going home. You do that by making good decisions before you get stopped and making good decisions in the middle of that traffic stop so that you don't get caught up in this system. But ladies and gentlemen, if you get caught in the legal system, never fear, because I am here to give you ways and wisdom on how to avoid letting it get worse. So again, I'm Judge Dawson. I've been on the bench now for over 9 years. It has been an amazing journey. I'll be up for re-election, which means I'll be trying to serve you for additional years. And when I say serve you, even if you don't come before my court, just the ability to reach you on social media, through my podcast, through my Dose of Positivity email that's available on my website, judgedawson.com, I feel that I am being of service to you. All right, so let's go. I tell you, every time when I do these podcasts, my goal is not to hold you long, but it's to give you information that you can use because you've got things to do and I got to go to court. So let me give it to you straight today. I want to talk about grief. Because in our society, it's almost as if grief is a dirty word. People don't want to admit that they're grieving. People don't want to admit that they're sad or that they're upset. You ask people how they're doing. Oh, I'm okay. Nothing's wrong. Now, that's one end of the spectrum. Then you got that other end where everybody is sad because everything is so terrible. But there is a happy medium between not always experiencing or living in sadness to the other end where you don't have to feel like you need to deny that you're grieving. Grieving is natural. It's a natural occurrence because basically grieving is a result of expectations not being met or things that you can rely on or you've come to rely on being lost. So if it's the expectation that's not being met, that means maybe there's something that you've been working toward that you didn't achieve, or maybe there was, a big deal that you wanted to close on, or maybe you expected your interaction with the police to be a little different when they pulled you over. How many times do I have people in front of me talking about, you know what, that police officer disrespected me and I can't stand for it. Why? Well, because that wasn't the person's expectation. The expectation was to be respected. Failure to meet that expectation created grief. And now the question is, what does that grief create? Does it put you in a situation where you're having a really, really bad interaction with the legal system, or is it just temporary? And that all depends on how you use the tool of grief, right? Let's go on the other end. If you've lost something that you've come to rely on, that's another reason to grieve. I love this example of if you lose a penny, you're going to look under the chair to see if you can find it, if you dropped it. If you lose $1, you're going to look around left and right to see if you can find it. If you lose $100, you're probably going to look in places that you've never even been. You're looking in under chairs and seats that you never even sat on in the last month because you want to find that money because you're grieving that loss. So I use all those examples to amplify the fact that grieving is natural and we all do it. The question is, how do we make it work to our benefit? And that's what I want to give you today. So one way to make grief work to your benefit is to acknowledge that you are grieving. We can't spend any more time trying to be Superman and Superwoman and make the world think that we don't have any issues at all. Now, I do understand that there may be situations and circumstances where it's not safe for you to let people know you're grieving. In fact, it was like that historically. There were times where if you were to cry, you were showing weakness. So what did you do? You didn't cry. But I want to submit to you that in today's time, you know what? Later for all that crap. Just because you show that you're grieving does not mean that you are weak. So if you are in a situation where you need to protect yourself and you can't grieve, get away from that situation because it's not healthy for you. Whoever has you to the point where you can't even grieve around them, you can't honestly tell someone that you're sad, you need to leave that situation before it gets worse. So remember, the first thing to do in order to use grief to your benefit is to remember that it's natural to grieve, that it's okay, and it doesn't make you weak. Now, after you've acknowledged that, I want you to turn it around and look at grief as a release that is necessary for your health. Grief as a release that is necessary for your health. Imagine walking around with all these toxins on the inside. Imagine walking around with so much depression and stress and heaviness on the inside. How will you fly? How will you walk into your greatness? How will you go to that job interview and nail it? How will you be able to effectively move from one position to the other, physically or mentally, if you're carrying so much negative weight? You have to let it go. And the interesting thing about grief is that if you don't strategically let it go, believe me, it will get out some way. It'll slip out. It'll come out when you least expect it. It'll come out when you're trying to impress somebody that you need to impress or love somebody whom you need or want to love. All of a sudden, this grief that you've been holding on to will slip out. And I'm telling you, it may destroy your relationship. It could even destroy the opportunity that was right in front of you. So please figure out the way to grieve properly. And this is how you do it. Go home and let yourself cry. Have a serious cry. You know, again, not only are you releasing the toxins, but you're getting all the grief out. I heard somewhere that chemically, the tears that come from grief are a little different than the tears that come from your regular crying. I'm not sure why, but something in those grieving tears is a little different. So I tell you that when you go home and you cry or you get in your car and you cry it out, even if you're a man, cry it out so that you can release those toxins so that you can use that grief to your benefit, because now it's going to energize you to get back in the game. You can only get back in the game when your body is ready to perform, and your body cannot perform as long as you are grieving. Ladies and gentlemen, I go deeper into this topic of grief on my YouTube channel. I'm going to go a little bit deeper on my dose of positivity. I guess that's what I do. I go deep, but I don't go long. So this podcast, it has come to its end because I have to go to court, but I really enjoy speaking to you. I really thank you for just giving me your ear for this short period of time. And if you've learned anything from this podcast, share it. Share it on Spotify with your friends. Share it on the Apple Podcast system with your friends. Share the emails. Let's connect. And most importantly, let's be the best that we can be.